Welcome back to Boneset Ranch. 2 years ago, I set out to convert a dead ATV from gas to electric. That attempt worked at first, but the assembly was too loose to hold together. I set the project aside for a while, but now it's time to finish what I started. It's hard taking a few steps back and to start again, but I really wanted to get this thing going. You can see here that the assembly just couldn't hold itself together. So on a weekend that delivered on the promise for lots of rain, I started to take the ATV apart again and start over with the motor assembly. My goal is to connect this motor to this sprocket inside of something that holds them together so that they don't move independently of each other like they are doing. So if I can create a cage that contains these two together but leaves this shaft able to slip into the drive shaft of the ATV, I should be in good shape. So that's my next goal. And I need to undo my crappy work and try to do better. Okay, so here I am. Sprocket and bearings are back together. This is from inside the transmission of the original engine. This is from the housing where the engine used to connect to the drive shaft. I need these two pieces to be connected together so that they hold this assembly together, but yet allow for the chain to go around. So this is the drivetrain. Got the tires here, of course, the differential, the drive shaft, and the connection point. So as this guy gets turned, the tires get turned. And I need to marry up my sprocket with the drive shaft. I can bring the sprocket assembly in here. I have a spacer that I'm using. Insert. And then some bolts that go through the frame. Now, if you think at this point that I'm working from some kind of a plan, I'm not. I created these arms without knowing how I would connect them to the next pieces. And then somewhere I realized I could set a nut inside the square tube. But that wouldn't hold, of course. So I welded them. I had the big picture plan, but I was tackling the challenge one piece at a time, and not afraid of adapting the plan as I went along. So with these bolts in place, I can put a plate over the top of this and tighten it down, and that way I have a way to put it together in pieces rather than having to make one big cage. When I put things together like this 2 years ago, I didn't have an idea of how much the motor torque would pull on this sprocket. So even though I was drifting away from the one cage idea I started with, I still needed to keep in mind that ultimately the assembled parts had to be held rigidly together in the end. Nice. That will make that hold very tight. Now to put one underneath. Alright, well, I've got this thing locked in here. I've got bolts to add a plate. The chain is good and clear. Now all I need to do is bolt the plate on that holds this in place, and I can move on to the last task of mounting the motor. I had stopped with the plate for the night, and that gave me the chance to realize I needed to use a hinge to add the motor to the assembly. This provides me with the critical connection between the motor and the sprocket assembly, and it provides a way to adjust the tension of the motor on the chain that I didn't have in my original build. And this was a very exciting moment. The moment it was back driving. I was a bit nervous at first though, hoping it wouldn't just start falling apart on me. But I was a bit more cautious, and when I started hearing this kind of a sound, I knew I needed to do a few more adjustments. I've mounted the motor on a hinge that allows me to adjust the motor up and down on this side, which allows me to put the proper tension on this chain over here. And so that gives me some flexibility in making sure that the motor is always in just the right spot to receive the chain. Over here, I've got my mounting plate that holds the whole sprocket assembly together with the bearings. I've used an angle iron to hold the sprocket plate firmly to the bike because these arms sticking out with just the sprocket plate tended to want to rock as the motor torqued on it. So as I thought, I needed the whole sprocket assembly and the motor assembly to not have any ability to move apart. You can see where I have the bearing holder on this side and then another one on this side. Together they're mounted to the frame in several points, and that keeps everything together as it's spinning.
I want to do it with my foot. It's big slippery.
I am a bit surprised about the noise, but I think it's a combination of the chain drive, a bit of the motor noise, and also the assembly type with the sprocket plate almost acting like a drum. But it all holds together, and it dries wonderfully. It works. I'm so excited. I've been able to zip up and down the street. I've been able to go do a little bit of off-roading and a little bit of speeding, and everything stayed together. So the next steps are to cover up some of the motor area, to paint all of the things that are all the bare metal, and to neaten everything up. The last thing I need to do is to be able to attach the fenders on the back and the rack and clean it all up and show it off. A few more final touches and it'll be trail ready. Thanks for watching.